9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, I'm Tim Robinson, Editor-in-Chief of AEROSPACE, and with me today, virtually this time, is Deputy Editor Steve Bridgewater and Features Editor Bella Richards. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another episode of AEROSPACE NOTAM. Now coming to you in full technicolor these days. We're looking at all the global aviation, aerospace, and space news, and what we have upcoming in the next issue of AEROSPACE, June 2024. In the magazine, we cover everything from GA to spaceflight, from airliners to airports, from air law to eVTOLs around the world. And gosh, it's been a busy month, hasn't it?
Just a little bit.
Where have we been and what have we been up to? Shall I start off?
You start. I think you've done more than everybody else put together. So yeah, you go first, Tim.
Okay, so we've just come out from yesterday from 3 days of the RAS Future Combat Air and Space Summit. So that was a big event for us last year. This year it was back. It was even better. People saying how good the event was. High level speakers. 3 days of real air power, technology, drones, geopolitical situation. Really good stuff. There was good highlights on GCAP, also what the Franco German kind of future fighter project is doing, but also some really sort of insightful stuff from the Royal Saudi Air Force and Turkish Air Force. So the Saudis were there. We had a Major General there who's in charge of their future capabilities, who said we're looking for a full partnership on GCAP. Which is they're not going to be satisfied with observer status or tier 2 status. A really good presentation on from the Turkish Air Force head of operations, and he was talking about the challenges to sort of like future fighters or the kind of next generation aircraft, and basically said stealth aircraft. Once both people have stealth aircraft, it's like 2 people in a darkened room with a gun and a flashlight each. Who's going to turn their flashlight on first and shoot each other? So lots of interesting stuff. Lots of interesting stuff to ponder there on Ukraine, drones. There was a good bit on China as well. China's threats, and also space. Talking about sort of like threats to space. Conflict in space. How is it different? How is it not different? In fact, so all told, a really good 3 days worth of sort of air power. Future combat air to sort of soak in and digest. So my brain is just full up at the moment with that kind of stuff. So where else have people been? Steve, how about you?
I've just come back from Hamburg. Went out to Hamburg with Airbus for an Airbus safety briefing, looking at various things, but particularly cyber security and also GPS spoofing, which is very topical at the moment. For those that don't know, GPS jamming has been around for pretty much as long as GPS has been around. GPS spoofing is different in that it doesn't jam the signal. It convinces the GPS that it is somewhere that it isn't, or that it's at a height that it isn't. As Airbus was saying, this is not new technology. This has been around for a while, but it's now been simplified to such a degree that the equipment you could almost buy over the shelf. So it's now gone from state-led warfare, effectively, into now something you could do from your own back bedroom. So it's now an increasing concern that wherever you are in the world, you could be susceptible to this GPS spoofing. And I think we saw quite recently that Grant Shapps' aeroplane was targeted, wasn't it, coming back from Poland, I believe. So a lot around those Baltic, hotspot around the Baltic states, obviously around Ukraine, Gaza and Israel at the moment, but also increasingly just the odd lone person that wants to cause trouble. So we've seen for a long time that the frustration element of somebody perhaps shining a laser beam at a helicopter, police helicopter, you're now elevating that to a whole new level. So really interesting to get a briefing on that, and obviously, not going into details as to what they're doing to prevent this, but it's clearly now a big concern for the manufacturers such as Airbus.
And what about you, Bella? You were at the pub quiz along with Steve. How was that?
Oh, that was So recently, the Aero Society late night, our latest one, was a quiz all about a lot of things, all about AV geek questions, space. What were some of the random ones, like weather?
We had weather, and we had cats and dogs, and
cats and dogs.
What I did was come up with a series of photographs of aeroplanes and helicopters that were named after or shared their names with cats or dogs. So it
was very smart.
Lynx or Jaguar or something like that. But some of the really obscure ones, and we had the Austin Whippet, which I think threw most people in the audience. It was a really good night, wasn't it, Bella? I really enjoyed it.
It was so much fun. I'm pretty sure it was pretty much packed out. All the groups were really
it was a sellout again. Yeah, it was a capacity audience. And I think interestingly, last year we did our first Aero Society Lates quiz, and it was won by a team of people who'd never met each other until the night. And the same thing happened this year. So there were lots of people that pulled together. I mean, the Airbus guys pulled together their dream team of aerospace journalists and av geeks, and still only came second to a group of people who'd never met until the night. So I like that with our Aero Society Lates, and it sort of brings people together with that sort of common love of aviation, and hopefully make some friendships out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's good. That's good. So sign up now for next year. I think is obviously the lesson there. And don't worry if you come along on your own, because
you
might win.
You probably put in, you might win.
And it's not about how much you know about aeroplanes. A lot of the questions that I write are fairly obscure. So we had our weather round. So it wasn't about naming the aeroplanes. It was about naming particular weather phenomena. And you got about question 3 or 4. You could see the light bulb went on in people's minds. They're all names of aeroplanes, so it might be Mistral or Typhoon or Tempest or something like that. So, so it was good. Tim, you weren't able to be at the quiz. You were somewhere else, weren't you? What did you have on your schedule that night?
Everywhere. I'm part of my travels this past month have been. So I went up to BAE Systems Wharton there. So we had a RIAT Farnborough press briefing there. Very interesting stuff. What's going on there? I had a briefing on some of the Falcon Works stuff they're doing on drones, but also a highlight there was looking at the upgrades that are coming for Typhoon. So the wide area display, big giant screens. Obviously, you see them in most fighter designs now. And the clever thing there, the two clever things there is that they have sort of semi-segregated it from the flight critical stuff. So there's now 2 sort of smartphone style size displays on each side of this wide screen where you can put the flight critical information. So obviously the stuff that you really have to have, and then on the widescreen display you can then modify, and you can put new symbology in. You can put new video feeds and things like that. So it really opens it up as a sort of a midlife upgrade for the Typhoon. There's also a new computer in there that's 200 times more faster than the Typhoon's original computer. And we had a demo there as well about how this new display opens up the capabilities of the radar and the long range weapons. So you think of things like Meteor, and you're thinking about how if you've seen the old school Typhoon cockpit, it's push buttons, and you've got 3 MFTs. They're colour. And they were good for the day, but there was a lot of mandrolic pressing a button to get the radar range out. This, you kind of scroll out, it will automatically, push out the range and things like that. So much more heightened situational awareness, and for my mind, it was kind of bridging the gap between what we were talking about in the May issue of simultaneous missions for aircraft, where you're flying the air, and 1 minute you're doing kind of air defense, and then you're striking a SAM site on the same flight. And because you've got the AESA radar, you've got this wide screen, you can actually do that now. You could do sort of multiple missions and just switch from one to the other simultaneously. So that was really interesting. Shall I go on? Where else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got one more, but you
All right, okay, yeah,
you carry on.
All right, so as well as sort of seeing the latest high tech, I was also over at North Weald. For the D-Day DAX, so there is the D-Day squadron that is, as we speak, in the UK. I think they're heading down from Prestwick.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 11 Dakotas kind of flying over the UK, France for D-Day 80 celebration. So had a bit of a preview there. And there was 103-year-old Colin Bell, who is still going strong, Mosquito pilot, telling us all about flying the North Atlantic in World War II. And incredible stuff, letting down in a 300-foot cloud base and then coming face to face with an iceberg. The fact he didn't trust his navigator, because apparently they'd fast track people in, I think he said from the Merchant Navy or something like that to be navigators, and so he didn't trust his navigator. And then the other thing was, and I've never heard before, so he was ferrying them from the factory in Canada, and he was saying something about they were worried about sabotage. Somebody was screwing the fuel relief valves on or something onto, or welding them on. And there was mosquitoes being lost to sabotage.
Oh wow, that's something I've never heard of.
So yeah, that was a bit of an eye opener. And obviously, he's 103, but doesn't look it and super sharp. And and he said, what are we doing on D-Day 80th? He just said, well, I'll be raising a glass to pay tribute to those who landed on the beaches and those who didn't came back. So that was really good. So watch the skies for that. What about you, Steve?
Airshow season has started for me. So I was at Old Warden Shuttleworth Collection a couple of weeks ago for their first airshow of the year. Brilliant event, brilliant sunshine. And highlight for me, we have the Hawker Fury, so 1930s Hawker Fury. Been flying for about 8 or 9 years now. It's the first time it's been to Shuttleworth, and
really?
To see it, I've seen it at Cosford and I've seen it at Duxford, which are very big areas for a small aeroplane like that. But to see it at Shuttleworth operating off the grass runway and really close in, Clive Denny did a great job flying the aeroplane, and there were so many highlights that day. But to see the Fury operating off the grass was just something that I've been waiting a long time for, and it was the first airshow organised by Jim Butts. So it's all credit to Jim for doing that. I know that was the top of his list, his wish list of aeroplanes to get there for his first show. So really good. And looking forward now to a full season of Shuttleworth events. And I think the D-Day squadron actually here in the next couple of days, they're operating the DC-3s out of Old Warden as well. So that's something to see.
Definitely, yeah.
Anything else for you, Tim, on your gallivanting around the world?
Well, not gallivanting to RES HQ, because we've had the world come to us. The HQ. So one of the things that has stood out in the past sort of month is we had a demo from Boeing of their Cascade sort of environmental tool. So this is takes data from multiple sources and really crunches it. And if you've ever, it's kind of like a educational kind of tool, but also sort of an industry tool. And it was really us being guinea pigs. Boeing were there. They'd invited people. There were people in the audience there from Airbus and from NATS and from all kinds of there who were there to basically given the thing of try and break it for us. So basically, this tool, you can put in various parameters. You can say, I'm fairly optimistic about aircraft being replaced, or I'm fairly optimistic, or I'm pessimistic about hydrogen coming into service. And you can play with the parameters. You can say how far you can get to aviation being net zero by 2050. So absolutely fascinating. This was an interactive demo where we were split them into tables, and we were each, have a play with this. Given a sort of like there was sort of like scenarios and explain what each slider did, and then we went away and had a go with it. And you learnt more in that than I think I've learnt in sort of press conferences where it's very. You're being told about it. You don't really understand what's being done, but it was very, very interesting in learning the trade-offs here of okay, well, what operational stuff can we expect? What's the regulatory environment? How confident are we of the Asia Pacific market? Buying new airliners and things like that. So I think Boeing obviously got a lot out of it as well, and they've got these professionals all in one place who are basically beta testing this tool, and come away with it, and really informative night. And the other thing, obviously, we also had the annual banquet at the RS. So that was at the Intercontinental, glittering event. We had the guest of honour there was Stacey Cummings, who is the head of NATO's procurement agency. Obviously, highly topical there. Gave a very, very highly topical speech there to many in the industry were in the room about how the need to sort of scale up arms production. And meet the requirements of kind of Ukraine. How do we get more kit to the war fighters, more missiles, etc., and get after these problems? So that was good. Obviously, David Chin was there as well, our new president, giving a welcome. Fantastic night.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Busy month for you.
It's a busy month. Yes,
it's a wonder we get a magazine out every month at this rate.
Yeah,
That's how we
need to. Yeah, and it's been busy in the outside world, hasn't it? And we've got a mass load of news. So who wants to start? Who wants to start with the news? Bella.
Go on, Bella. Ladies first.
Go on.
Ooh, okay.
What's caught your eye in the news?
Yeah, I got to write a news analysis on this piece of news. It is evolving, so hopefully, well, not hopefully, but it might have changed since we put this up. But there's some, I guess, troubled waters within the German eVTOL startups right now. So basically, we're seeing a bit of investment hesitance. I don't know if that's what you call it, with two of the main German eVTOL companies, so Volocopter and Lilium. So basically what's happening, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try confine it. You can read it in the magazine, so you can get the whole broad spectrum of the news. But basically, so Volocopter, Lilium. Volocopter is based in, I'm going to butcher this name. Now, before I came on, I literally looked up how to pronounce it. But they are based in Baden-Württemberg. Is that okay? I think
Sounds
that's
good to me.
Thank you. And then Lilium is based in an easier place to pronounce, Bavaria. And basically, both of these companies, beyond getting kind of initial investment from private investors in the kind of early startup phase, they now, as they kind of hope to commercialize and actually bring their products to the market, have wanted to garner government support. And so in 2023, Volocopter kind of sought to secure a 100 million euro split between the German federal government and then the company's state home government. But this was rejected. The reasons were kind of blurry, but apparently the Green Party leadership just rejected it. And so then the company decided, okay, we're going to seek a convertible loan from the federal government and the Bavarian government. Now, as I mentioned, they're not in Bavaria. And so accessing this loan would mean they would have to move their operations to Bavaria, it seems. I'm not sure if that means everything. But in general, that's obviously a huge task. And so that actually hasn't even been accepted yet. And so we're not really sure what's going to happen with Volocopter. But similarly, Lilium was also kind of going for similar loans. But with all of these rejections and just setbacks or just things taking a really long time, they have both sought for kind of outside help. So Lilium announced on the 13th of May that it was in advanced discussions with the French government to kind of expand its production there, which would mean they would access subsidies and like a loan guarantee of up to, I believe, 400 million over several years. So this means they would obviously have a production site there and would be working a lot more with the French government. And they said it very clearly. They said, here's our reasons why we're seeking help from France. They've got a well-established aerospace industry, expertise in electric mobility. And then most tellingly, they said they have a supportive government environment. And then further, Volocopter, while there's kind of less discussion on what's happening with them, they did say they're looking for new investors that will likely be outside of Europe. I'm sure there'd be still European ones, but, finding financing outside. And they're also, looking at insolvency options. So it's kind of not looking great. But as I said, this news is evolving days after Lilium announced this news when it came to looking at France. The German government announced that they have commissioned State Development Bank KfW in Frankfurt to basically conduct due diligence on Lilium as part of a customary state process to be able to get them a 100 million loan, which is what Lilium is targeting. And so hopefully this would guarantee federal and state government support from Bavaria and kind of security for the bank loan. So this is potentially really good news. I'm not sure if this move was in response to Lilium announcing that they're potentially going to the French, or if it, if it was already in the works. I'm not really sure. So hopefully things are looking up. I mean, there's less news about Volocopter, but I wonder if they'll have similar talks with their state government. And they did say, this kind of uncertainty hasn't put any strains on their hopes to certify the Volocity this year. But we do know now, I believe, that they're not flying at the Paris Olympics. So I think there's definitely some impacts on it. But yeah, this is evolving, as I said. So I'm sure things will change, but it's not looking great. But it also is for Lilium. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully things change.
So the question here I think we need to ask is or my question would be, is this a sort of a symptom of Europe's sort of startup culture, not just in eVTOLs, but kind of IT and the tech firms where, you go to the US and you've got venture capitalists and they'll throw money at things, and you get, Google, you get Amazon. You get these big tech firms that just dominate the globe, and in Europe we're a bit behind in that. But also in terms of eVTOLs, you've got, one of the things that's also striking is that there is a lot of government support through the US Air Force and AF Works that are supporting, Beta and Joby, and to really push. You might sort of ask, well, what are the applications really for the US Air Force? Why are they bothered with something that hasn't really got performance, hasn't really got the range? But on the other hand, it is giving that extra stimulation and a bit of funding there to help push this. And it's at the most important time now, certification, where you need deep pockets to get through.
And that's exactly what they said. They said Europe is at the forefront of kind of innovation, but getting to commercialization and actually beyond just the startup stage is where they fall short. So hopefully this will kind of open the eyes of I guess the government. But...
And previous projects, you think of Concorde, you think of Airbus, Airbus Industries, that they were national state projects with that level of not, kind of commercial sort of startups. Interesting. Steve, what have you got for us?
I've got a shorter story.
Sorry, mine was very long.
That's fine. And it's along the electric aircraft theme, actually, but it's a company in Florida called Maxwell Aircraft, which are creating two new aircraft. One is a version of the Lake Renegade, so very familiar, old-fashioned, if you like, amphibious aircraft. But they're also producing a composite version it's kind of a bit of a mashup, if you like, between the Grumman Widgeon and the Grumman Goose, and they're calling it the Gwyduc. Now you'll notice that we're working from home today. I'm in Derbyshire. I'm very close to a town called Ilkeston, where everyone calls you Miduck. So I just wanted, the Gwyduc, I think, is a fan. So Gweduck, Gwyduc. So it's sort of part Grumman Widgeon, part Grumman Goose, but in electric version. So two 300 horsepower electric motors on it. So really interesting looking aircraft. Absolutely,
cross species hybrid.
Yeah. When we talk about hybrid a lot in the aviation world, but I'm not quite sure that was the hybrid that people really were expecting. But I just thought it was interesting to see, what's a Grumman Widgeon and a Grumman Goose now, is 60-70-year-old aeroplane. So still spawning effectively new versions and electrified as well. So that's and that's a company called Maxwell Aircraft, which are in Florida. So that was my first news story. Tim, what about you? Something hopefully that isn't electric or GA.
There's a lot of there's a lot of seaplanes are coming back in fashion, aren't they?
Exactly.
And so why not use one of the classic designs? So I've got the news here of so obviously I think it was last weekend, we had news that the Iranian president had his chopper, and I think the foreign minister was in it as well. Had come down in a crash near the border with Azerbaijan. Obviously, it's Iran has been under sanctions, so they are flying very, very old aircraft. And the one thing that jumped out when you saw footage of where people were looking for it was there was extreme foggy, and it was mountains. And extreme fog, mountains do not, and helicopters do not go together. So it brought back sort of. Obviously, you want to wait for the crash report, but the crash site did look like it's fairly contained. It was the side of a mountain, so it looked very much like controlled flight into terrain and some sort of low visibility thing, which has happened before many times with helicopters. So it's just one of the things where. Obviously, conspiracy theorists were quickly on the case of who or what might have brought it down. But if you look at the overall weather conditions and weather and terrain conditions, that seems to be the most likely cause of that. And the other interesting thing was. So Iran has obviously been known for its drones. We've seen drone attacks. We've seen drones targeting ships in the Red Sea. But in this case, there was a Turkish drone that joined the search. So Turkey actually sent it. So it's a little bit sort of strange that their drones seem to be completely optimized for. Kind of offensive missions rather than surveillance or ISR or the kind of stuff that you'd expect a predator to do with thermal cameras, because that's what they were basically looking for. They wanted something with thermal cameras. So interesting little bit of sort of tidbit from that. What else have we got, Steve? Back to you.
Back to me. I've got another eVTOL, which has just started flight testing in a subscale form, and it's another one with a complicated name. It's not quite Gwyddwch. It's a company called Horizon Aircraft, which is a Canadian company, and their aircraft is called the Cavarit. So think favourite, but with a C on the front, so Cavarit. And it's what they call a hybrid electric aircraft. But it's what makes this unusual is it's got the fans in the wing, so it's got a pusher propeller. And then it's got 14 lift fans actually within the wing. And I think what makes this aircraft unusual is, now we could never do this when we had a podcast, but I can actually use my hands properly now that we've got video. Once you're in forward motion, there are actually covers which come over the fans to create a wing airfoil. So you've actually got the benefits of an aerodynamic wing for forward flight, but then you can use it either for you can use the fans for vertical takeoff. And the aircraft will either land conventionally, so run on, or you can uncover those fans again and land vertically. So they've been testing a subscale prototype, hoping to develop this into a 7-seat aircraft, which they say with the hybrid electric element of it, they think they can get a 500-mile range out of, because they'll use the conventional engine to recharge the motors in flight. So I think that's a really interesting development. And yet another take on the eVTOL. We've seen the multicopters, we've seen Lilium with its ducted fans, and now we've got something again completely different.
And has that ever been tried before, Steve? With with conventional sort of ducted fans, put them in the wing, and then kind of folding something over. Was there some kind of was it a vertiflight or a verti?
The VertiJet, I think. Ryan had the VertiJet, which is a similar sort of. But obviously this is much smaller and electric. But yes, so similar sort of concept. But if they can scale this up to a 7-seater, I think that's going to be really interesting technology. So they've been, say, it's about a 1/3 scale. It's an uncrewed test, but they're looking to start full air testing within the year. So one that particularly caught my interest. Bella, anything else from you?
Always. Actually, a great news
Never doubted
story. never know. Indian budget carrier Indigo, which I believe is their biggest airline in India, has recorded an annual profit of nearly $1 billion, which is a big news, not only because they've profited, I believe, for the first time for a whole financial year since like a long time ago. But this is apparently the first for an Indian airline to ever reach this kind of figure, which is such amazing news because I remember India definitely took a hit from COVID, like every nation, of course. But India particularly got massive hits. I remember reading articles like the COVID pandemic is going to bring Indian aviation to the ground. Obviously, they've had heaps of manufacturing issues in the last few years, or even just supply chain, which again is not unusual. A lot of the industry has had that. So it's a really cool thing to see kind of a whole year them profiting. Even just the fact that not only a year ago, I think they had massive losses from like 29 million, and then the year before 50 million. Just see that they reported a 106% increase in profits is really great news. And I think alongside of this, it seems that they're kind of changing their business structure a little bit. Even just the fact that on 6th of May, they ordered an order of 30 Airbus A350-900 aircraft with the option to purchase a further 70 in the future to kind of begin more long-haul flights within the US and Europe. This is kind of big in itself because, as people probably know, they've boasted mostly a narrow body fleet for a long time. And even then, further than that, I think only yesterday, the CEO announced they're going to be offering a business class kind of service on some of their aircraft in the future, which is over their kind of usual standard economy configuration. So it seems like their business structure is kind of changing and shifting. Which I think makes total sense after their massive profit, and even the CEO attributed the success of this profit to the kind of strong execution of the airline's strategy and kind of shift over the last year. So yeah, I think this is a really, really good news and good to see India kind of coming out of, at least Indigo coming out of COVID-19 and further better than before.
So here's the question though: is that in terms of legacy carriers and low cost carriers, is obviously they already operate multiple types, don't they? But
Yes.
one of the keys to success, at least with Ryanair, EasyJet, Southwest, is you stick to one type. And you don't get distracted by like long haul wide bodies.
That's the interesting
business class. So
yeah.
On the one hand, it's like great. Are they moving to be a legacy carrier? But on the other hand, some people with longer memories might be going, okay, I wonder if they're getting kind of that's to start to overreach yourself. And if you move away from the low cost model.
Yeah.
And then you go into long haul and business. Are you then sort of setting yourself up to, for a little bit of trouble down the line? Yeah, watch this space, as they say.
Yeah. What about you, Tim?
So I've got something on. So obviously, we remember from the last FCAS summit last year, we talked about AI. Talk about drones turning on people. Lots of news from that. We had some developments there. Well, some developments in that there's been successful tests now of AI-powered F-16 out at Edwards Air Force Base in the Vista program, and that's just basically taking taking some of the learning from DARPA's and I can't remember what it was, AI Alpha dogfight they did, where they did it in a simulator, and now putting it into the real world, and human versus AI in the skies, which you think, I don't know, just 5-10 years ago, if you'd said that, people would say, well, that's nice plot for a science fiction movie. And it's got to the stage now where the Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall, he went in the back seat of this F-16 and took a flight. So it's kind of, if you can show your top defense official, if he's willing to go in that, because presumably what they did is they put him in there, the pilot let go of the controls and said,
watch this.
hang on, sir, we're now about to fly against some aggressors, and the the pilot and Frank Kendall was just sat there and just passengers while the AI did its stuff.
Wow.
I think that I'm speculating here, but I'm presuming that that was part of what happened rather than,
Yes.
that shows how kind of mature and quickly the technology is coming along, and obviously that then feeds into things like the collaborative combat air program that the US is working on, and the fact also that they, you don't think about it, but the US Air Force also operates F-16s as drones anyway. QF-16s. They're used as drones for missiles. Yes. Who else has got? Steve, back to you.
I've got one more. Yeah. The Accident Investigation Branch here in the UK has issued their report into the vertical VX4 crash, which was in October last year. As was suspected, the aircraft lost a propeller blade. I think what's actually interesting is not particularly that element of the report, because we kind of knew that was what had happened. Vertical had been implementing a new blade design at the time, so they've now identified 36 product and process improvements which they are putting in. That's difficult to say. But I think the element for me, actually, I've got the AAIB report in front of me, and I just want to read a couple of sections from it, which fit in quite nicely with our future flight paper, which our outgoing president, Carissa Khan, published, and we've got in this issue of the magazine. When the aircraft crashed at what's now called Cotswold Airport, what used to be RAF Kemble down in the Cotswolds, obviously the fire crew turned up on site, and to quote from the Accident Investigation Branch, as no fire had occurred and no occupants were present, they monitored the aircraft with a thermal camera to detect any overheating of the batteries. Now, they did this for 3 hours before it was deemed safe to go and actually look at the aircraft. The aircraft had detected a short circuit, so they sent in a remote pilot dressed in appropriate personal protective equipment and accompanied by a high voltage trained hookman approached the aircraft to shut down the electric systems. Now, this is an uncrewed vehicle, and I think it just begs the question now. If this is a vehicle which is in service and it has got passengers on board, where do we stand with the existing fire cover that we've got at airfields and non-airfield? These are vehicles that are projected to be operating from vertiports, from skyscraper roofs, whatever it happens to be. So I think there's a big question here, looking at the future of what the actual safety requirements are going to be around operating this. Because if you need to wait 3 hours for the batteries to cool down, that's not feasible when you've got paying passengers on board. So that I thought was a really interesting element of the report.
Interesting, very interesting. What about you, Bella? What have you got to finish off?
Yeah, just one more. Oh, this is not that good of news, unfortunately, but I'm sure everyone is very aware of what is going on. And another evolving story, it could change by the time this comes out. But NASA has again shifted the plan to launch the first crewed test flight of Boeing's Starliner, as everyone would be aware, which it is not the biggest shocking news. The amount of delays that we've already watched over the last few years, it's just another set of delays. But basically, this flight, which is obviously taking Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to the ISS, I think the original launch date, at least within May, was on the 6th of May. And then it was scrubbed, I believe, 2 hours before liftoff because an issue was discovered within the valve of the Atlas rocket. And then finally, a new date was set for the 25th of May. But then I think maybe 2 days ago, NASA said it was foregoing the attempt due to a helium leak in the service module. And at the time, I think only a couple of days ago, the agency said the next launch opportunity is being discussed. And it was originally an unspecified date in the future. But yesterday, again, evolving story, the teams are now working towards a new launch opportunity. So for Saturday, 1st of June, and then additional opportunities on Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 6th of June. So yeah, apparently the leak remains stable right now, and they're pretty much just looking at what's going on and how it could impact Starliner return scenarios, and pretty much trying to fix it. But yeah, this is again, the fact that there's a delay isn't a big shock, but I think it begs the question, which we've said before. I think when the original launch date for this year was in March or April, is that even back then, when the launch was in March or April, they were already cutting it close to fit into their original schedule for, I think, doing 2 flights a year by the time the ISS deorbits. Now they're already well behind. So who knows if they're going to be able to even fit that schedule. Does that mean they'll have to kind of increase the launch cadence for the next couple of years, do more than 2, or whatever it may be? I'm not sure, but I think a lot of people are losing hope. I mean, I'm sure if everyone reads X or Twitter comments, everyone's like, "Give up, NASA! Why are we still doing this?" And it is quite sad. I really hope that they launch soon, because I'm honestly sick of seeing it like give up, or it's just another like bad news for Boeing. Which it has been like that for a while. Starliner has not been a positive thing to talk about for a while. But yeah, hopefully it launches. I don't know about what it's going to be in the future though. What that means with the schedule they have.
But the other thing also is that the Dream Chaser is catching them up, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that'll be sort of free. If they can get it to work, that's free.
And they had a much quicker timeline.
Yeah.
So proving that they did it way quicker. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, watch the space again.
Yeah, as usual.
literally. So the final one from me is it's a bit of a sad story here. In extreme turbulence events. Now, these seem to be getting more and more frequent, and unfortunately, in this particular case, we had an elderly passenger who died, and 40 people injured on a Singapore Airlines flight from London, and over extreme weather conditions, deadly turbulence or a storm, and the aircraft suddenly descending, I mean, some people might have seen some images from inside it that looked a real mess. But the latest news there is it's spinal. Some of the people have got spinal and head injuries. So the thing that comes out of it is one, keep your seatbelt on at all times. If even if the seatbelt light is off, if you're back in your seat, then keep it on. And the other thing to bear in mind is these are extremely rare. Mostly, most of the time, big thunderstorms, extreme weather, airliners will descend, climb, reroute around them. Weather modeling these days is so good, and you've got the live information that comes in the cockpit that these are very, very rare events. So there's that to bear in mind. But on the other hand, it's something to be thinking about in the future as to, because of climate change, planet getting hotter. We're seeing maybe an increased frequency of these things, which this sort of events. It seemed to be, a fairly recent phenomenon in terms of, or maybe it's just sort of like the reporting of them has increased, and maybe previously people didn't really pay them much attention because worse things were happening in the air transport system that
it could be, but I know, listening to, I think it was BBC I was listening to on the rolling news, they had a meteorologist there who was saying that there is definitely an increase in this activity, and he had the correlation there with global warming. So I think this, you've hit the nail on the head there, Tim.
Yeah.
Right. So,
okay.
So having covered the news, we're now going to go over to an exclusive interview with new president David Chin. So join us after the break.
Hello, I'm Tim Robertson, Editor-in-Chief of AEROSPACE magazine at the Royal Aeronautical Society, and it's my great pleasure to be joined here by our new president, David Chin, who has just taken over just this past couple of weeks, and for 2024-25. Welcome, David, to NOTAM.
Thank you.
So, you're our new president, and for the next year, for the next 12 months. But a little bit of your background. What got you into aerospace and aviation in the first place? What was your inspiration?
Yeah, we're going back a long time to, I hate to admit it, the 60s and 70s. I was completely inspired by Apollo. I'm a child of the Apollo generation. I am old enough to remember actually seeing the moon landing,
Wow.
which is burned in my memory from 1969 in black and white. And at the same time, there was Concorde going on, which is all very exciting. So those sorts of things were very much in the press, very much in my world. I remember a school report saying, David should think about something other than space, which was I probably still got in the loft somewhere at the time. So it's very much Apollo, Concorde, that sort of thing. I have to say the military stuff came a bit later. I wasn't particularly aware of the military developments until I got really into the aviation, well, preparing for a career in aviation.
Okay, and you're a civil servant now, but what was your career path then into where you are today?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to be sponsored by the MOD when they used to do that sort of thing to university. Then I started at RAE, Royal Aircraft Establishment, as was the great home of aviation, and that really was quite formative for me after university. I spent almost 5 years designing, building and flying ejection seats.
Wow.
So I used to play with ejection seats, but real stuff. So that was very much hands-on engineering, which I suppose has had quite an influence on me. And then of the various projects, I've done all the fast jets, Eurofighter. I was out in Munich for a while on Eurofighter EFA, as it was then called, Tornado, F-35. So yeah, I've had lots of different opportunities. Also worked in the European Union, again trying to do a lot of air R&T, so trying to get the different nations to work together, which is always a challenge.
Fantastic. And when did you join the RAS then? When did you become a member?
I don't know what persuaded me to join it, but it seemed very much a natural thing to do. So I actually joined it when I was in the sixth form.
Wow.
And I remember being a very nervous sixth former going down to the then Lanchester Polytechnic to get the branch chairman of the Coventry branch to propose me, which he said, well, I don't really know you, but you seem quite keen, and it's only for a student. So yeah, since I was in the sixth form, so I've been a lifelong member almost.
Yeah, well, we go back a while. I remember being in contact with you when I first started here. But and you've been involved with the council for quite a while, a bit of sitting on our council. What made you decide to run for president? The top job.
The top job. Why? The society is very much what you make of it at all levels. And my first role in society was helping to set up the Munich branch, going back a long time ago, and it was always the most junior person interested in helping out, and they said, right, you're the branch secretary, which is the way I think a lot of branches operate when they're setting up. And as I moved through, there were a few things that I wanted to do, and we'll perhaps talk about my themes for the year. And as president for a year, you get the resources of the society. For example, this sort of interview to be, I don't really like one word platform, but I've got a few things I want to do this year. I'm very aware that a year is a limited amount of time, so I've got to be realistic. But it is the opportunity to do things that I've had bouncing around in my ideas, certainly the design, build, fly, for a number of years, and this is my chance to do stuff. And yeah, in some ways it's a culmination of a career as well, which is a great place, great organisation. I feel at home here, which is nice.
Brilliant. So go on, tell us about you've got 3 presidential themes for this year, 3 presidential focus. What are they?
Yeah, so the first one I just mentioned is design, build, fly, which from my point of view, and I know there's the Americans do something in terms of drones and radio controlled aircraft, but this is about real aeroplanes, and I was inspired going back to Munich. The German academic system, the technical universities, they're actually student societies. They're not formally part of the university system, but they're called Ackerflieg, and there are about a dozen in Germany where groups of students design, build and fly original designs, so from scratch. So they're quite big undertakings, but they're original aircraft designs, often sailplanes, but there have been a few powered ones. When I was in Munich, there's the MU-30, which was a 2-seat glider tug, aerobatic glider tug, which was really impressive original design. So what I'm trying to find out in the UK, and it's a bit of an exploration, is how would we, UK, not quite replicate, because our academic model is different, our accreditation is different, that sort of stuff, but be inspired to get young people, and it's probably universities, industry, training schools, that sort of thing, and people that fly, so the LAA are involved, BGA are involved. So how do we get that ecosystem, and I think it's turned into an ecosystem of people working together to do design, build, fly. Now, I've got the inspiration comes from Germany, but from a UK point of view, I go back to our charter, Aeronautical Society charter, which is my guidance, and it's taking forward the art and science of aerospace.
Yeah.
And so to me, design, building aeroplanes is really what the charter's about for me.
And it's not just a kind of light aircraft, the GA sector. It's preparing the next generation to think about kind of airworthiness and certification and
absolutely.
Yeah.
So through various stages in my career, I've either participated or received lots of reports on skills, and we've got skills prices.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting to know how many reports of these have been written. And there's always, we need to do something, and this is really trying to do something, because again, for me, having been in various parts of the skills sector, but also seen the result of the ACA fleet, the best way to learn how to build airplanes is to build airplanes. And if we, for the military or the civilian world, we're trying to build quite complicated airplanes, if you start off early in your career building a simple but real airplane and having to get it flying, to me, it's a great experience.
So you can't build a 6th generation fighter without building a 1st generation light aircraft.
I would suggest.
What about your other two frames then?
They're getting enthusiastic there. So I mentioned a while ago about the Apollo generation. That to me was a real inspiration. And what is great now, with the UK space sector being so active, that's an inspiration. And I think as a society we can really develop that, use it as a community that we can develop. And from my point of view, if we want to engage with that community, we have to figure out what our offering is, how we are the society, or perhaps a society, not getting too parochial, for space professionals.
Yeah.
And in order to become a society for space professionals, then we need to figure out what a space professional looks like. And that's developed, but going back to the early days of aviation as opposed to aerospace, I think we as a society have changed over the years, meeting those professional needs from external accreditation organisations, but also meeting the community needs. And space seems to be in a similar place, but a lot earlier on in the life cycle, as it were. So it's really to figure out what our offering is, articulate it, and then develop it where we need to in terms of meeting the needs of the community and the industry.
Plus also, aeronautics is now multi-planetary, isn't it, with ingenuity on Mars?
Absolutely, and we could talk about space. That's probably a different podcast.
Okay, and the third one is sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's something that the society has been covering for a while, and I think from my point of view, it's really just putting on my hat as the chair of the council, which is one of the roles of the president, is to make sure that we, the society, are clear about what our engagements is. We are a neutral, well-respected organisation, but we can't take on the whole aspect of climate change, let's be realistic. So it's trying to make sure that we are clear what we are trying to do, where we can realistically engage. But I think that I come back to the respected and neutral, because some of these discussions are quite difficult. So I think we need to not be frightened of those difficult discussions, but be bounded in what we can do, but be clear and support and engage, because we have to. But as a society, aviation has to engage in this debate. There's no option.
Yeah. So what are you most looking forward to in the next 12 months of your presidency year? So a little plug, we have a president's conference coming up on design, build, fly. So maybe mention that.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned it a few times. Is the design, build, fly, the ACA fleet. That is my major thing, because that's the thing that feels doable, or at least startable, in my presidential year. So there is the conference in October, and a lot of the things that I'll be doing, certainly over the summer air show time, that sort of thing, will be focused on that. I've already been to Frederikshavn, the GA show, where I did a few quick video casts, or whatever you call them. Yeah, what do we call them?
Video interviews.
Video interviews, right? Okay, video interviews.
Pieces to camera.
So I did a few from Frederikshavn. I was recently at the micro rally at Popham, did a short piece there on what microlights are. So it's really going to be getting out and about, meeting the grassroots aviation, if I can use that phrase, the people that I would like to engage in this community that will support the design, build, fly activity. More generally, I've been very involved in branches over the year, years. So I'll be going to the branches conference, hopefully meeting as many branches as I can, either at Hamilton Place or at the branches, seeing some people I know, some people I don't know, and also learning how branches have evolved, definitely post-COVID, because all my branch activity was pre-COVID, and things feel very different. So how that engagement with the membership goes in the current environment and how that might evolve, that's really interesting. Similar sort of thing for specialist groups. I've been involved with the specialist groups over the years, seeing how they're evolving again in that post-COVID environment, what our offering is, what the membership wants, where we might need new specialist groups, that sort of thing. And then going on to the space thing, trying to make sure that we engage with the UK Space Agency. They're obviously a great supporter. European Space Agency, we're a member of European Space Agency, they're very friendly, hoping to work with them. The UK Space Command, so we've got GORAS, if I can use that phrase, who's just been elected to the council, that's public domain, so that's really good news. So we've got good engagement with the space domain. And the other thing on the branches that I'm really hoping to do, and there's a bit of a plug here, we seem to have a core of members in the southern Netherlands around the European Space Agency Technical Centre, Delft University, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that we can do a trial lecture there. There'll be some stuff coming out in the press about expressions of interest. So that'd be a really good thing to do, space focused but branch focused, where again meeting that membership need where we've got a core of membership. So basically, design, build, fly, space, get out as meet as many people as I can, and obviously representing the society with other organisations as well.
Well, so set up for an exciting year then. So talking of excitement, we've got the Farmer Air Show coming up in a couple of months now. What are you most looking forward to there? Again,
to be honest, with air shows, I enjoy the stands. The flying is good, but it depends on the weather. Looking at today over Hyde Park, we've got a rainy Hyde Park for those of you who don't know, outside. But the flying aside, the thing I enjoy about Farnborough is having a plan of things that I want to see. And I guess we'll be doing society stuff in a scheduled way, and that'll be really interesting, trying to promote the society, trying to understand what the corporate partners are interested in, and that sort of stuff. But also I find at Farnborough and other shows, serendipity is great. You have scheduled time, and then you have the unscheduled time, and just wandering around and discovering stuff. Oh, I didn't know about that. That's really interesting. Tell me a bit more about that. So scheduled stuff representing the society, but also the serendipity. And yeah, if you recognise me, us, whoever's accompanying me at Farnborough, please say hello. It'd be great.
Brilliant. Okay. So final question here is a little bit about your sort of free time hobbies. One of them is you're apparently a keen glider pilot. Is that correct? And you also into something I'm very keen on, flight simulation.
When I have time.
Sorry? When you have time, yeah. Okay, so tell us a bit more about your gliding. You go gliding?
Well, yeah, I do power and gliding. So to me, it's going back to the doing it rather than just talking about it.
Yeah.
So I just enjoy being in the air. There's a great pleasure just being in the air. I'm an early stage glider pilot. I don't know any cross country stuff, but I just enjoy being in the air. And I fly at Nimsfield, which is by the Severn Estuary. So on a nice summer's evening up over the Severn Estuary, there's nothing like it.
Fantastic.
But more practically, there's always stuff to learn in terms of aviate, navigate, communicate. You can always do stuff better. You can always go further. You can always set yourself challenges, whether it's powered or gliding. There are always challenges, and it's fun to do with friends. But the other thing is, again, to me, the practical benefits of learning how to do stuff link into very much my agenda of it's great to do the PowerPoint and have lunch, but actually being out on an airfield, touching airplanes, figuring out what can go wrong, and learning from that is really, really useful. Again, going back to the theory of aerospace, you can do hazard analyses, whatever, but actually checking out an aeroplane before you fly and think, right, okay, what's actually gone wrong here? Really concentrates the mind. So it's linking it, yeah, it's fun, that's why I do it, but also part of that wider learning experience, and that's why I'm keen to feed that back in institutionally, because it's a great way of engaging the community.
And flight space simulation, is that on your hard drive? What's on your hard drive at the moment?
Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020
Yeah.
and X-Plane, if we're doing any advertising here, they're both on.
Yeah.
And the thing I enjoy, I used to do a lot of military flight simulation for fun a long time ago, which is really educational. But what I use now is I tend to do I have all my charts and procedures and just fly the difficult bits of my real flights before I go in.
Yeah.
So quite professional, boring, but sensible way, so that I try and get, for example, a new route. I try and get all the difficult bits in my head with the real charts, fly them, make sure I've got the approaches. It sounds like it's just real stuff, and I think they're really educational now. And compared to where they were when I started simming, now I have a big screen with track IR, so head motion sensor. The amount of realism you can get for relatively little money, I think, is
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great fun.
Brilliant. Well, that was David Chen. So we're really looking forward to keeping up with him in his presidential year. And stay tuned for NOTAM. I'm sure we'll have him back. And congratulations and good luck for the next year.
Okay, thanks, man.
And welcome back. So as you can tell from the interview with David, we are in for a fun year with him. He's got some really good priorities. Design, build, fly. That's right up your street there, Stephen. The fact that he's a glider pilot. Again, up your street, Stephen. And the fact you went to space, professionalism of space. So that's you covered, Bella. And the fact he's a closet flight simulator fan. So that's me covered.
See, we're in for a great year, aren't we?
So we're gonna have a brilliant time with David, and expect to see him out and about at Farnborough, at our events, round and about throughout the year, and obviously at the President's Conference in October, which will be Design, Build, Fly. Going to be really interesting stuff on that. So do mark your diaries now. Right. So for the June issue, what else have we got coming in the April edition? We've got more president stuff, or the previous president's stuff.
Yes.
So that was the eVTOL paper that was published. Gosh. When was it published? Yes, recently.
Early May.
Early May. So that's the shaping the future of AM safety. Really interesting stuff there on future gazing. Possible eVTOL accidents. Something a little bit different than your standard sort of briefing paper. It's almost, I wouldn't say it's science fiction. It's not science fiction because it's actually it's closer than science fiction. But what are the sort of and basically the key question is, are these aerial taxis safe? And what can we do now to avoid them, avoid these issues and these challenges that are specific to eVTOLs. So, things like batteries, battery fires, things like the cluttered low altitude ATM environment, and also human factors. If you're flying these really short legs every single day, and you're on maybe you've got some kind of lower income than like an airline pilot. Maybe it's a sort of like an Uber style job, maybe not quite as an Uber, but are you going to be flying these multiple short legs, and you're going to also be pressured by VIP passengers? Are there kind of human factors in there in sort of to whiz people around and be this sort of air taxi person? So really interesting stuff there. That is definitely worth a read. What else have we got in this issue? Bella, what have you got?
Yeah, well, I got to do a really exciting plain speaking interview with the European Space Agency Director General, Joseph Ashbacher. That was really cool. That was definitely one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I got to do it in early April. And we talked about a lot of things. I won't give it all away. But basically, all the things I'm sure you can imagine. We talked about the Ariane 6 delay, and I guess the need for overlapping rockets as one retires and one enters service, which is something they definitely learnt from, the Ariane 5 retiring and the Ariane 6 yet to launch. The public's perception on Europe's space program, ESA's future Prometheus and Themis program, the Zero Debris Charter that was announced at Paris Air Show last year, which actually, funnily enough, in this last week during the Space Council, there's actually been a few more announcements regarding what we talked about. I believe 12 countries officially signed the charter. And then we also talked about the cargo return competition, which again, I think he announced only yesterday that ESA's signed 2 contracts with the exploration company and Thales Alenia Space for the development of the cargo service. So we talked about a lot of things, but it's a really great interview, and just nice to kind of be able to hear his thoughts on a lot of things, because he's really open. He's a great director general. He's really open. He's not afraid to admit the kind of shortcomings of the past few years. And you know, he definitely doesn't have like PR answers. He'll very much openly kind of talk about the biggest issues, which it was a really great one. Yeah. What about you, Steve?
I've got, would you guess, a GA story. We'll go from Tim talking about our outgoing president to me talking about our incoming president. I've just heard from David Chin in the break. David and I went out to Aero Friedrichshafen for the big trade show. Highlight of the year for me always has been, I used to go to Friedrichshafen every year when I worked for some of the private flying magazines. Not been for a few years, and my word, has the show grown. So 12 halls full of really interesting light aircraft through to business jets. Yeah, it's absolutely enormous. So we've got a roundup of the show going in the magazine. I just want to talk about a couple of the highlights of the show. So at the larger end, we've got the new Piper Fury, so the latest incarnation of the Piper Malibu family, the PA-46 family. So that was their fastest ever variant of that. Really impressive aeroplane. Cessna had got their new, in inverted commas, Cessna 172. Which is like any other Cessna 172, but with a number of tweaks to the cockpit. So, but I think it's interesting. I did a short video which we've shared onto our social media with Textron, talking about this is a 60-year-old aeroplane and it's still relevant in the training environment. So, I asked the question, do you intend to electrify it? Do you intend to make it modern in any other way? And the answer is no. It's it's not broke, don't fix it. Textron have their own electric aircraft. They've got the Pipistrel Velis Electro. They're looking at other aircraft like that. So they'll go down a clean sheet route rather than trying to do something with a 172. But it's still popular. It's still popular with private owners and flying schools and the big flying schools that do commercial training as well. So you've got everything like that was there. But then, of course, Germany and that sort of area of sort of Eastern Europe is a real hotbed for development in the ultralight market. So some really interesting aircraft there. And some of them harking back to a bygone era. So Junkers were there, newly formed Junkers aircraft. They produced the A50 a couple of years ago. Really nice reincarnation of the 1930s A50 aircraft with a Rotax engine. They've now made what they call the A50 Heritage. So they've got rid of the Rotax and put a beautiful Werner 7-cylinder radial on the front. And I thought the other thing that's interesting with this aeroplane, having looked inside it, is they've got rid of all the glass screen cockpit and put old-fashioned steam-driven gauges in, because they said that's what the owners want. So they've surveyed the owners, and if you've got the radial engine on the front, they want that sort of oldie worldy feel. It's a lovely-looking aircraft. It's got the Junkers corrugated fuselage and really nice-looking thing. And I think probably the star of the show for many is an aircraft which has not yet started flight testing, but is due to do so in the next couple of months. Tim, you'll love this. It's a full-scale replica ME-163 Comet. Yep, that's right. Jet-powered, so it's got a small turbine engine mounted in the tail, the sort of engine that you see either mounted on the top of gliders as self-sustainer motors, or mounted in big radio-controlled aeroplanes. So designed by Hans-Dieter Sipper. He was at the show. Fascinating chap. It's all built out of composite, but the patina on this thing, you walk up to it and you can't tell it from an original ME-163. It is really interesting. At the moment, they don't think it's going to have enough power to actually take off under its own power. So for the flight testing, they're planning to aero tow it, as you would with a glider, and then spool the engine up once it's in the air and it's got some air coming in the intakes. But what an interesting thing.
But that's how the original was tested, wasn't it? It was flown as a glider first.
Absolutely, and of course landed as a glider once the K-stop had run out in the original. And that's what will happen with this. They'll glide it back in. But it was interesting. Lots of very modern aeroplanes, but also lots of older aircraft being reincarnated. So one of the other was a Stomp. So the Stomp SV4 aerobatic biplane looks a bit similar to a Tiger Moth, perhaps most famous in the UK for being one of the mounts of the Rothmans team. There's a company making a full-scale Stomp SV4 as an ultralight. 600 kilos maximum takeoff weight, Rotax 912 on the front. Beautiful looking aeroplane. Sadly, it's not aerobatic, which is what you'd really want from a Stomp, but it's got the aesthetic, it's got the look. It's an aeroplane I'm looking forward to getting my hands on at some point. But then you've got the more modern side as well. So you've got there's an aeroplane called the Porto Risen, which was a V-tailed, very, very sleek aeroplane. But they're getting off 100 horsepower Rotax. They're getting nearly 200 knots in the cruise from this thing. Really sort of racer look machine. And then particularly of interest, I think, with the new propulsion system. So a lot of electric aircraft there. Diamond debuted their EDA40. So we've seen the DA40 now for 20 plus years, 4-seat, low winger, sort of equivalent to the Cessna 172 in size. They have gone down the route of electrifying it. They've got a pannier underneath the fuselage, which has got the batteries in. So you've got legacy types like that being re-engined, but also at the show there were new aircraft that were designed purely around electric propulsion. And I have to say the one that really grabbed me was the Solar Electra. So it's a motor glider, 2-seat motor glider. But what made this really unusual is, as anyone's familiar with gliders, you tend to take them around in trailers. So take the wings off, put them in a trailer, take it home with you, or take it to the next airfield or something like this. This trailer has solar panels on the trailer. So in the space of 3 hours, you've recharged the aircraft motors for another hour's flying. And of course, that's an hour with the motor on. So being a motor glider, you can extend that by finding thermals and soaring. So that's really interesting. But I think for me, the real star of the show was actually the Chinese exhibits. So there was a 2-seat electric aircraft and a 2-seat electric aircraft on floats. So the same aircraft but on floats, designed by a Chinese university and now being marketed by a Hong Kong company. So it's the Chinese university's got all the technology. They've been working on this for a while, but they don't know how to effectively monetize it, market it, and get it out into the wider world. So there's a Hong Kong company doing that now. But for me, the really interesting thing is they bought their 4-seat hydrogen-powered aircraft to the show.
Interesting.
So, and compared to Singapore, where the Chinese were there, but you weren't allowed to look at anything or photograph anything, as I found to my peril, at Friedrichshafen, they were incredibly open. I got to sit in the 4-seater, did a video tour around the inside, looking at the hydrogen tanks, and I think it's a really interesting concept. And what they've done with the electric aircraft, just to summarise, rather than having to continually plug it in and charge it, what they've done is they've got swappable batteries. So you can land the aeroplane. And so they're looking at almost a kangaroo hop system. So you fly from airfield to airfield. And all you do is you take the battery out, with a plug, you put the new battery in, you plug it in, you're good to go. They're saying 10 minutes, but they said realistically it's nearer to 3 minutes turnaround on it. So that could be a real game changer. But anyway, that's enough of me talking about small aeroplanes.
Fantastic. Well, nobody has to read that article now.
no, there's plenty more.
Steve has summarized it. No, you should still read it. So what have I got? So I was working on an article on we had a survey there in partnership with Proto Labs. They are a 3D design, digital design experts, and this is a follow-on from a survey we did last year. Some interesting little changes there. So sustainability has kind of leapt up as the main focus. Recruiting more skilled personnel has kind of dropped down a bit, or not dropped down a bit, but a bit of rebalancing there. And I think there's some interesting stuff there on recovering from COVID, showing this survey showing the industry recovering from COVID. So COVID is now in the back mirror. We're not so worried now about recruiting more skilled personnel. But I think one of the things that jumped out, as well as sort of 3D printing going more mainstream, was we've had a lot of in the news in this past 12 months. We've had a lot of spotlight on quality control, certification,
Yeah.
failed, bogus parts as well,
Yes.
standards and things like that, which normally get sort of almost pushed to one side. People, when you have accidents and things like that, it's normally about the flight deck, what's happening on the flight deck, were the pilots at fault, or et cetera, or was it bad weather and stuff like this. The Boeing quality escapes has really put the spotlight on the manufacturing side of things, and the quality control, certification, training, skills, et cetera, and stuff like that, where things like digital paper trails, for want of a better word, and digital manufacturing can really help out, and are part of the sort of like solution. So kind of some interesting results that come out of that. And as well, the other thing also was there was a new question here. How important do you think AI will be in advanced manufacturing digital design in the next 5 or 10 years? So we had 32% say very important, and 48% saying important. So it'd be interesting to see how that shifts, and whether that increases. Obviously 32% saying very important, that's a pretty significant chunk, so it is coming, but I think maybe there's a kind of a note of caution there, as well, as to it's going to be important, but we don't quite know how important going forward. So yeah. Who's next? What else have we got in the magazine?
I can go.
You go.
Okay. Yeah, we have a great article from one of our freelancers, Kate. She reported on the RAS conference that happened in April, the International Conference on Energy from Space 2024. Basically a whole conference, a really packed out one. I remember I was there for a few of the days, and I think we spoke about it last month. A roundup on kind of what the speakers were talking about when it comes to space-based solar power, and what energy from space could look like in a very simplified way that I just mentioned it. Obviously, she goes into a lot more detail. But yeah, some of the, I guess, constraints the industry currently faces with it, some of which are, investors and even government kind of hesitating to invest in such a risk at this point. Or even the fact that, if we're going off potential solar farms, they are huge, monumental structures. So relying on, potentially hundreds of rocket launches, because most rockets can't accommodate for such large structures. And, the one we can all think of, Starship, who knows when that's, going to be officially, commercially, having, I guess, the frequent launches that we expect. And yeah, some of the experts at the conference, I even spoke about the security issues of energy technology, which can often be a target of threats from other countries. And yeah, I guess the big takeaway from the conference, according to Kate, was that the government simply cannot fund space-based solar power alone, but needs investors. But as already mentioned, there's going to be hesitance until the sector has, I guess, adequately been de-risked, which will take a while. But even though there's a lot of technical hurdles, a lot of governmental hurdles, even monetary hurdles, I think the conference clearly indicated that there is a lot of passion towards making the industry feasible, which would have been honestly unheard of quite a few years ago. But now that we have bigger launch technology, increased launch, cheaper launch, I think it's a lot more feasible now. I think it just depends on the risk that people are willing, or companies or investors are willing to take, and I guess whether it'll be worth it if it's proved to be, something that actually is really helpful towards net zero goals, and yeah, I guess viable in a cost way. So yeah, it's a really, really great article.
I mean, you could say that also is that I mean, there's people now who are probably wishing that they got in on the ground floor with Starlink.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, sort of 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you said, well, we're going to build a mega constellation with thousands of satellites, would you invest in there? Would you go, oh, that sounds a bit pie in the sky. Yeah, it sounds a bit risky. Crazy. How are you, how does that, and they're now making money, SpaceX is, Starlink is now making money. So it's about, I suppose it's finding these people who've got the vision, and also partnering with government there, who's going to say this has got long-term net zero benefits
Yeah.
for society as a whole.
Which if
let's get
if
yeah.
sustainability is a high priority, as you mentioned in the previous article, for companies and people in the industry, even if it's aerospace related, clearly then people want to do the sustainable things, and this is a big part of it. So.
We've got another great sustainable article in this issue, haven't we, Steve?
Yes, it's an article written by Teresa Paul-Trayvell. Nice segue, Tim. Well done. This is an article. We had Bella earlier butchering some German. I'm going to butcher some Latin now, but much to chagrin, I think, of my old Latin master, Mr. Bishop. Camelina sativa, which is a member of the flax family, and it's generally considered nowadays to be a weed. But back in ancient times, it was used to make oil. Teresa has done a great job. I have to say, I've been with the Society now for a couple of years. This is one of the most interesting features that I think we've had in the magazine, just in terms of that light bulb going on. This is a plant which grows in really, really poor, degraded land, but it has an amazing crop in terms of, at the moment you can turn 30% of this stuff into of the oil from it into sustainable aviation fuel. So you've got a crop here which is not just potentially carbon neutral, it's actually carbon negative, because if you actually compost once you've taken the seeds and ground them down, if you compost the rest into the ground, it results in a carbon footprint which is 128% lower than conventional kerosene. So this is just really, really interesting. And what so Teresa spoke to lots of experts in the field here, and what they're proposing is that farmers can grow a conventional food crop, so wheat, barley, whatever it happens to be, but then every third crop they alternate round with this this wonder weed, if you like, to recharge the ground. So you're replenishing the nutrients in the ground, and also you're creating a SAF without impacting on the feedstock, which is, as we know with a lot of SAF at the moment, is coming out of ground and food stock that we could be eating. So we're transferring one problem to another. This really, if this is as good as it appears to be, this could be a real game changer.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Rotation. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So really, and as she sums up at the end of the article, she's saying that's with the crop as it is at the moment. So if you can genetically modify it to an even higher yield, then there's a huge possibility here of it being a really, really important landmark crop.
Well, want to plug into Boeing's Cascade tool, I think. And the other one we got in this is something on pilot and mental health in this issue. Again, that's comes out of one of our papers, briefing papers there, but also looking at whether AI can be used to kind of sort of early spotting people's mental health early by the way which they maybe interact, do phone calls or send emails and things like that, just to help. And really, the author there is saying, we obviously sort of say, well, the quantifying this sort of stuff is too hard, it's too difficult. You can't possibly do it. But maybe there is ways and means where you can actually get after some of it and try and quantify that thing early. And also help remove the stigma. And it's interesting that we had last month, I think, was the FAA was saying about they wanted to sort of say that it should not go on your record that you've had.
What the talking therapy is. They refer to it.
So interesting stuff there. Again, June issue, really great issue. Great mix of stuff there in the magazine. So really looking forward to this coming out. And we've got lots of stuff in the back of the magazine, haven't we?
We've got a lot. Some of the big ones, which I'm sure you've seen, that King Charles became an RAS patron, which was possibly the biggest news for our society this month. And then, of course, alongside, we've got a new president. So there's a biography of him. And then some things looking back at the month, Aero Society Lates, which we talk about, the quiz night, the banquet, lots of great photos, book reviews as usual, all of the normal stuff there too. So it's packed afterburner as well.
And we've had quite a bit of quite a bit of news from the branches around this month, haven't we?
Yeah,
I mean, they've been
lots of
getting in.
branches.
So Berlin Brandenburg branch and the
Yeah.
Paris branch and Australian division.
Australia division. Yeah.
So again, if you're out there and you're listening to this or watching this, and you're involved with your local branch or division, please do send us your branch news and events to Bella there, features and we'll try and get it into the magazine. So space is limited, but if you've got news of upcoming events or you've got a nice a picture from a lecture or an event, do send it our way and we'll put it in the magazine. Right, so moving on, what have we got? Upcoming events, shout outs. What else have we got coming up? Lots of stuff. We've got a corporate partner briefing. Responding to the changing nature of security threats. University of the West of England, Bristol on 10th of June, I believe. So that's one to mark. And then the CIAS Euro GNC conference, 11th to 13th of June. CIAS, Council for European Aeronautical Societies. So that'll be all. I think I remember that correctly. That'll all be all about navigation and airspace, and quite a deep technical conference. So that's one to look out for as well. And then, with my background in mind, we have Aero Society late movie night, Top Gun Maverick, where I'm going to be talking to Paul Tremeling, author of Harrier, How to Be a Fighter Pilot. Who so we're going to watch Top Gun Maverick at Hamilton Place, and then we're going to take it apart bit by bit.
Didn't Tremors fly the F-18 on exchange as well?
He did. So he's a former FAA Sea Harrier pilot who's also flown the Super Hornet. So we're going to get lots and lots of amusing dits from him on how he could take Maverick in a dogfight. I'm sure.
That's going to be great, and of course that's the opportunity to watch Top Gun Maverick on the big screen, isn't it? So
yes,
if you missed it in the cinema, now's your chance.
With a Q&A afterwards. So in the company of fellow aviation enthusiasts who, you can talk to the person next to you and they won't kind of go, well, what aeroplane is this? What's happening now? All that kind of stuff. So that should be a fun night. We've got the D-Day Dakotas. So I've already sort of talked about that. D-Day Squadron here. They are going round to Shuttleworth. They're going round to Duxford.
Up Ottery. They're operating out of Up Ottery, which of course was Band of Brothers, Easy Company, where they launched from, and then of course on the 6th of June, going over the Channel to Normandy. Yeah,
so they're going to be flying over, doing a fly past over Omaha Beach on 6th of June, and then they're going to be based at Cherbourg as well, and for the duration. So it's all tied in with obviously D-Day 80, and they'll be doing kind of photo shoots as well, and they've got to the stage where the people who are doing the reenactors, and obviously you see reenactors at some of the air shows, and some of them look. I don't know, less than authentic. Put it this way. Some of these people have got the right kit, the right age, the right haircut,
and they've been on rationing.
And they've even repainted their vehicles with the right markings to go with the actual Dakotas.
Love that. That's brilliant.
So if you go there and you take pictures and you put it through the sepia tone or the black and white tone. You're going to be hard. You're going to have hard pressed for people to tell the difference. We've also got a TSR2 60th anniversary lecture coming up 12th of June at Preston Branch, so that should be pretty cool. RAS Applied Aerodynamics Conference 16th, 17th of July. That'll be happening at HQ.
It is. Yeah.
We have the Global Air Chief Conference 17th to 18th of July. That's a support event. So that's the big RAF Air Power Chiefs one. I've had a little bit of a preview of that, what's in store for that. Theme of sort of deterrence through air power, about how air power can stop things from escalating further. And one really good example of that, I think, recently was obviously the attack by Iran into Israel, which was stopped dead in its tracks by Israeli air power, but also US air power, UK air power, Jordanian air power, and it prevented escalating.
Yeah.
you can do that if you've got good air power. Riyadh, 19th to 21st of Riyadh. So we'll probably be out there looking for at least part of one of the days. I would imagine.
Normally on the Friday.
Normally
that's
on the
a really
Friday.
busy week, isn't it? Because we've got Applied Aerodynamics on the 16th and 17th.
Yeah.
Then we've got Global Air Chiefs on the 17th and 18th. Then we've got Riyadh on 19th to the 21st. And then straight into Farnborough on the 22nd to the 25th.
Yep.
Yes. So yes, that is our mad week of the year there, about 2 weeks. So then we've got Farnborough Air Show, 22nd, 25th of July. Obviously the big one for us. We'll be there. The whole team will be there. And do send us your news if you are a corporate partner, if you are involved in press, their media side of things. Do send us your news under embargo. Send it beforehand. Drop us a line. Tell us all the exciting stuff what you've got. You're about to announce. We'll be doing the daily blog there at the show. We'll be out there with cameras, video, you name it, notepads as well, and just hoovering up all the news that's going to be there. So really looking forward to that. Yeah. And before that as well, we've got the Aerospace Media Awards, and all three of them have been shortlisted.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got shortlisted for something on the Phasar 35. Steve, you got 2 nominations?
I've got 2 shortlists. One for the article I did on small gains, so small changes, big gains. So looking at how existing aero engines are being tweaked to create increased efficiency, and also my article about unleaded fuel has been shortlisted as well for best MRO submission. So yeah, exciting to be shortlisted for 2. And Bella, you've got your first nomination or first shortlist.
First shortlist.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's too. No, I got nominated for the best space submission on my article from, I think, last October. Will launch capacity for short, basically all about legacy oh my gosh, not carriers, rockets. I'm getting confused with aviation and space. Retiring, new ones coming. Is there going to be a gap in between where we have no rockets available? And just looking at that, that was really exciting.
Wow,
I think it's really appropriate, isn't it, Tim, that Bella's shortlisted for a space article, you're shortlisted for an air power one, and I've got a GA article, so everybody's happy.
Yeah, everybody's happy. Yeah. Well done on that, Bella. No pressure there. Now we'll expect a nomination every year from you now.
Every year,
yeah.
So we're moving on. We're coming to the end of this. Gosh, it's been a long episode.
It has been long.
What have we all been watching, reading, or playing? Who wants to start with that? Steve, air racing. Oh, go on.
Well, look, mine's a little bit embarrassing. Mine's not necessarily educational. My husband and I have been a little bit obsessed. We're in our post-apocalyptic era. That's a very Gen Z term, but basically we've been watching all of the classic space movie kind of things, I don't know, Alien, or this one's not much of a cult classic yet, but The Martian or War of the Worlds, basically aliens coming to invade. Literally every single time we watch a movie, we're watching something like that. So that's been fun, but definitely not educational compared to yours.
The Martian's education. I would argue.
Martian is.
Yeah.
The Martian's very educational.
How to grow potatoes on Mars?
It's true. We've learned how to do that now. What about you, Tim?
So I've got a couple of things here. So first off, I went to a bit of a nice lunch earlier this week, and a release this week is Hercules by Scott Bateman, who is current BA pilot, but also a former RAF Hercules pilot, who's put together some really, really cool stories from the Hercules' career. I mean, what a classic aircraft. Obviously retired from RAF service. But some amazing stories in there. People jumping out of the back of the Hercules into the middle of the North Atlantic because there was a bomb threat on the QE2, and also I had the privilege to meet the lead pilot for the Entebbe raid. So the Israeli pilot there who was telling us about how flying a well, he was not on NVGs, but his co-pilot was, and in those days it was very basic NVG, and his co-pilot was basically saying left a bit, right a bit on a darkened runway.
Oh,
Wow.
So the Intemerator, if you look it up, if you don't know what it is, but I said, well, what's the best thing about it, and he said it's just a very, very forgiving aeroplane.
Mm.
It's very, very forgiving and easy to fly. Other airplanes you can make mistakes and they'll kill you. Hercules will look after you. So I'm really looking forward to getting that. And also, digital wise, flight simulation wise, there's the DCS F4 Phantom E, which has been released, and I haven't had time to get into yet because of various things happening. But as soon as I get a free, I was going to say a free weekend, but maybe a month to get into it. I'm going to be diving into that because it's done by the same people who did the F-14, and that is just sort of pure digital flying fun in how it, how an airplane is recreated. From the vibrations in it, from the scratches on the windscreen, and in this particular one, the pilot model they've used is a kind of virtual recreation of Robin Olds.
Oh, nice.
Complete with moustache.
Of course.
So that's the level of detail and sort of like love that's gone into that. So I can't wait to go in that and go and have some fun with the Phantom. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I've been reading a book about air racing, but I've stupidly left that on my desk at Hamilton Place. So, but I had a birthday last weekend, and I've got to show you this. This is something we couldn't do when we were a podcast, and hopefully this will come across on the video. This was my birthday present this year, which I think you might appreciate. I don't know whether you can see that.
Oh, nice.
That is G-Fire, so Spencer Flack's Spitfire, the red Spitfire, very famous for air shows in the 80s, painted by Oliver Stevenson. Now, if you look at the quality, Oliver is 19 years old. So if he's painting that at 19...
What the heck?
I know. So for those that don't know, G-Fire, one of the first privately owned Spitfires, painted in the famous scarlet colour scheme that Spencer Flack had on his Sea Fury, and on his Hunter. And he would famously say, when somebody asked him, why is your Spitfire painted red? He would say, what colour's your Spitfire? And I think that just summed it up perfectly. So that's my... And, and if you didn't see that on the podcast, that's the reason to go and look us on YouTube.
Good plug right there.
Very nice, very nice advert there. Yes, watch us on video as well, and we're also interested in your questions, your feedback. What would you like to see on this pod? What wouldn't you like to see on this pod? Is it working? This is a bit of an experiment at the moment, but we're enjoying it. And let us know what you think. Send us questions, feedback. So finally, wrapping things up, where can people keep up to date with the RAS online? Bella, where can people keep up with you?
Sorry.
You're still on X?
Yes, RAS Bella R. Sorry. I'm
RAS R.
I'm on X as RAES Steve B, but more commonly on LinkedIn and on Facebook with Stephen with a PH, Stephen Bridgewater. You'll find me on both of those.
Yeah. So send Steve all your spam marketing emails directly to his LinkedIn account. And obviously we've got aerosociety.com, and we have the twice weekly Insight blog. So to keep up with all the news there. So brilliant. Right. Well, that's goodbye from me, and goodbye from everybody else.
Bye, guys.
See you all next month. Cheers, guys.
See you next month.
Bye.